The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. It's Proverbs 1:7. Young Christian man, welcome back to Seeking Wisdom, the podcast to help Christian young men see life from God's perspective. Now, we have had our guest today on before. This is my papa, Dr. Charles Shoemaker. We've had him on before, and last time we talked about finances with him. But today, I want to talk about something a little different. I want to talk about our education. Because a lot of Christian young men, or really just young men in general, we don't like the idea of education. It's a lot of work. It's kind of boring sometimes. And also, you have to be humble enough to admit that somebody knows more than you. And that's not always fun. But education is super important. And not just our textbook education. There's other sources of education. But learning to learn is hugely important in our lives. And so today I want to ask Papa if he could help us understand what role education has in a Christian young man's life. Now, before we start, I want to just kind of introduce yourself again, kind of remind our listeners of who you are, because it might have been a little while since they've heard you last. So could you kind of introduce yourself?
Yeah, Charles Shoemaker. I've been married for 52 years, been in full-time ministry for 50 years. And, raised two daughters that are, one is Daniel's mother, and both married to pastors today. So that's a little recap of where my life.
Amen. And he doesn't have any favorite socks. All right. We kind of started off with the assumption that education is important. Mm-hmm. In fact, I said it at the beginning. But I want to take a step back. Is education important for a Christian young man?
I agree. It is important. And I also agree with what you said. Education is more than just a textbook. It's more than just sitting in a class. You can learn, every man is your teacher, has been said. So you can watch people and learn so much from other people. You can learn from your mistakes. You can learn from what works well. Obviously, you go to, schools to get education. So you look back over maybe a favorite teacher, the way they communicated certain things to you. You really appreciate that. You learn more in that class maybe than in others. So I think it is important. I think in life it's valued. In our country, it's certainly valued. Mm-hmm. And if you want to get ahead, I think it's a good thing to do, to invest in that.
I remember one day we were standing in this office actually, and you said something to me. I don't remember the exact wording, but it was to the effect of, you can skimp on a lot of things, but don't skimp on your education. And when you told me that, actually, that's when I decided that I was going to go to college and that I was going to get my degree. So thank you for that.
Amen.
All right, so you kind of touched on it a little bit, but you said education is important. Why is it so important for us?
Well, I think if you look at a job application, mm-hmm. almost always they want to recount your educational experiences. So where did you go to high school? What was, maybe some even asked your GPA, grade mm-hmm. point average, or where did you go to college? So I think it is important when you're seeking employment. Now, in some cases, it's learning a skill. And, if you're, let's say, a welder, they probably don't care where you learn that as long as you know how to do the job. Mm-hmm. But in other places, it's more important than others, for sure. Especially if you're dealing with people, ministry, or just general jobs that you're a people person. You have to speak well, write well, that type of thing. So it's good to learn that mm-hmm. somehow, somewhere from somebody. So it is important. It's no question about that.
Gotcha. Now I know how a young man's brain works. Our first thought is, okay, so sure, it's good, but I don't have to. Do I have to go to college? Do I have to go to trade school? Because, yeah, it's good, but what if I don't want to?
Well, again, I think here's the question. It's not what you want today. It's what you want in the future.
Ooh.
And so you look ahead in the future. What kind of a house do you want to live in? What kind of a car do you want to drive? Mm-hmm. How do you want to provide for your family? All of that really is an education question to some degree. So, yeah, today, as a young guy, It might just be, let's have some fun, let's relax, let's take a trip, whatever. That's all good. You can learn from all that. And I think there's a place for that. But I think you look, it's not today, it's tomorrow, it's next week. You look down the road and you realize in order to get that job that pays a decent wage, I have to have some level of education, some experience, if you will, to get that job. Now, I almost believe that experience is equally important and maybe in some places more important than education. But almost always they want to know your level of education on a job application. It's important to have that.
What do you think it shows them whenever they have, or whenever you have an education? Getting my words mixed up. What is an employer seeing whenever they see that you have a 4-year degree? What does that mean to them?
Well, I think it means that you know how to persevere. They're smart enough to realize that not every teacher, instructor, every course you enjoyed, but you went through it. You did it. You persevered to get to the finish line. You know how to complete something. So if they give you a project, you're not going to walk out in the middle because you did 4 years of education somewhere, in some cases even longer than that.
Yeah.
So they realize this guy's he knows how to get the job done, even though not all of it's enjoyable. I can look back, not all my educational, some teachers, I think the worst thing in the world is someone who thinks they can teach but can't. and you have to endure that because they're the instructor for that particular course. So you get through it. It's not always easy.
Some of my students might experience that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. It is. High school or beyond, it's all the same. Yeah.
Okay, now I want to sidestep for a second. And we talked about okay, let me collect my thoughts for a second. I'm going to cut this part out. Okay, I want to sidestep for a second because I have a heart for young guys who want to go into ministry because I'm one of them.
Sure.
And there's this raging debate of well, Paul never went to college. Peter never went to college. All the apostles, they never went to college. So for guys who go into ministry, and this won't apply to everybody, but for guys who want to go into ministry, do you think they first need to go to college in order to become a pastor or a missionary or whatever else? And then beyond that, do you think they should if it's possible?
Yeah, I've probably preached in about 500, maybe 600 churches. Out of that number, let's take 500. There's probably not even 5% of the pastors that have never gone to college. The reality is, a pulpit committee, I'm often asked by pulpit committees, those are the groups that call pastors to a church. They want to see that a guy has gone to college. So in some cases, it's not necessary, but that's a very slim minority of the churches out there that would ever want that. Besides that, you're going to learn. You're just going to learn things that you don't know. And you're going to have certain professors that are going to take time to maybe mentor you individually. Their life experiences come through the material that they're teaching. I just think it's really vital to have at least a minimum bachelor's degree.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't so much that I had to go to college. It was that, if I'm going to be ministering for the Lord, I want to have as much preparation as possible. I heard someone say, I can't remember who it was. I wish I did. You've probably heard the quote, so you'll probably be able to tell me. Someone said, if I had 3 years left to serve the Lord, I would spend the first 2 years preparing and the third year actually working.
Preparation is key.
Yeah.
On the football field, they prepare. You think about cooks, famous cooks, they've prepared for years to be able to make that dish that really is their dish. That's everybody brags about that meal that they prepared because they put time into it. So I think that quote, I don't recall who made that quote that you just cited, but I think the concept behind it is true. You just look at the Apostle Paul. They kind of went off to a desert and came back and God taught him, and there he went. So his ministry is probably, in the New Testament, the most shining ministry you can point to.
So it's not so much about the piece of paper hanging on the wall as the preparation that went with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just the diligence, the stick-to-itiveness, the discipline to get up, to be on time, to follow, whatever rules that college might have. which you don't probably embrace every single thing that they espouse, but you just have to do it. I think all of those are good things that really come into your life. And there's going to be some instructors or professors along the way that will really just, boy, they're just going to shine in your mind, and you're going to learn more from them probably than from the others, but that's okay. And then life is experience. So you're going to get some of that. Just the more you do, the more you're going to learn, for sure. And then I think it has to do with what type of a community you're going to. Now we're talking about pastors, what type of a community do you want to pastor? If it's a rural community, it's probably not nearly as important as it is if you go to a suburb of a large city where most of the people there have college education or master's degree or some beyond. I'll tell you, someone with, doctors and lawyers are not typically going to go to a church where the guy didn't go to college.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That kind of segues back into our talk to everybody is the things that you're learning there, the perseverance, the stick-to-itiveness. I think that's a word. I'm not sure. The lessons that you learn there, sure, you probably could learn them somewhere else, but the fact that you're getting it all up front is just so beneficial. So you mentioned you were the president of a college for a little while. I say a little while. How long was it?
15 years.
Okay, so longer than a little while. Almost as long as I've been alive. So for 15 years, you were the president of a college. And can you speak to us a little bit about what we should be looking for in a college? Like, suppose I haven't gone to college, and this is just general top-level stuff. Regardless of if you're in ministry, if you want to be a plumber or an accountant or whatever else. If you're going to college and you're looking for a college, what kinds of things should you be looking for to help you decide which college to go to?
Well, cost is always a factor, no question about that. And, there's an adage, you get what you pay for. So that comes into play for sure. Convenience. The wonderful thing about education today, and you've experienced this, is that you don't have to, pack up and go 1,000 miles away. You can do it online. And I think that's credible. In most cases, it's a credible education. But, to go back to the question, I think, is a college accredited? And accreditation is important because a group of people that have no dog in the fight, so to speak, about that college come in and review the finances, the stability, the educational program, the student life, et cetera, and they put their stamp of approval on that school saying, this is a good school. This is worthy. You're going to get what you pay for when you invest your money into this education. So I think that is a very important aspect of it. And there are some fine schools that are not accredited, but I say generally speaking, that's something to look for when you're looking for a school. And then again, does it have the courses that you want to what you're going to pursue in life? Do they offer that? I would look at you get a college catalog, go to the back, look at the faculty, look at their credentials. And, are there people there that have not just master's degrees, but beyond that, doctorates, that they, like at our college, we couldn't put somebody in a classroom to teach New Testament unless they had on the master's level at least 16 hours in New Testament before they could teach that course.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. See, so that there's a standard there that really helps you so they know what they're talking about. And again, I think there are fine schools that are not accredited, but generally speaking, that's a good thing to look for.
So cost and accreditation?
Yeah. Two of the big ones. And then convenience, is it close to you? Like in your case, Daniel, you're doing something with your life in addition to college. So you're looking at a school that's online, and it's a fine school. I've been there and I've taught there, and it's wonderful. So there are good schools today. Back, 15 years ago when schools were trying to do that, I don't think that they were succeeding greatly, but I think today the level of competence in those kinds of schools are much, much higher. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've been blessed by the education that I've been able to get online, been able to stay where God has me, which is the whole shtick of my school.
Mhm.
I've been able to stay and serve where God has me while getting a quality education online.
Well, and the other factor is not just students get to stay where they are, professors get to stay where they are.
Mm,
So you're able, this
I've never thought of it
institution
from
is
that
able
side.
to think about people around the country to do certain courses right from their home. They don't have to travel. They don't have to sell the farm and move to wherever the college is. They can do it where they're at. So you get the advantage of these pretty exceptional people
Hmm.
that are really experienced, really spiritual people, if we're talking about ministry, that, wow, I got so-and-so to teach this Bible class, that type of thing.
Yeah,
That's pretty neat.
yeah, for sure. Um, Kind of random question. Maybe you don't have an opinion on this. What do you think about gap years? Like a lot of people will take a year after high school to just kind of either relax or just make some money before they go back to college.
I think some people have to have a gap year for financial reasons. They have to do that. But again, if it's a gap year where they've done a budget, they realize I have to have this much money to start college, as long as they're disciplined about those financial resources so that they can go back to school, that's fine. Some people just need a break. I get that. You need a break, sometimes even a semester off. The one challenge you have to watch when you take a semester off, certain courses may only be offered in that semester, and you need those courses to graduate. So that may
Right.
delay the whole thing, not just a semester, but a year, because, you have to be aware of that. So smaller schools would have that probably more than larger schools would have that as a issue. But I think some people just need sometimes to take a break. I use this illustration where you clench your fist, and I tell people, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Now, you can't live that way. That's something you got to relax. And so some people coming out of 4 years of high school, they just need some time away. They just need to relax. And most people are excited, or many people are excited about the college experience. So but some just need that time, to relax.
Yeah. Now, what are some other sources of education? I mean, we're talking about college a lot, which I think is fitting because you were a college president, and didn't you kind of like ran tracks for a while, right?
Right.
Which is an accreditation company. They accredit like a lot of big Bible colleges, right?
If you're familiar with Bible colleges, they would accredit Bob Jones University, West Coast Baptist College, Trinity Baptist College, Tennessee Temple back in the day when that was viable, Northland when they were operating. So they accredited a good number of Christian colleges. I think accreditation is good because it's an outside group that comes in and evaluates student services, finances, et cetera, kind of put their stamp of approval on it. I think it's important. But there are other things. I mean, for example, if you want to be a plumber, which we all need plumbers, or an electrician, we need electricians, you don't necessarily have to go to a 4-year college to get that. So there are trade schools out there that really are good. I don't know much about trade schools, but I'm saying you, again, look for trade schools that would have some outside source saying this is a good school to go to, or try to figure out, maybe some person who graduated from that school that can vouch for it as being really excellent in that, teaching you how to be a plumber or whatever. Would be a good experience to pursue.
And one day we'll get someone on here who is in a trade and can help us through that kind of process as well. But I want to ask too, like, what are some other just general sources of education that we can get beyond college, beyond sitting in a classroom? What are some ways that we could be learning in our lives?
Well, readers are leaders. So
That's the phrase.
Yeah, people use that all the time. But, for example, you don't have to know the Bible. You don't have to go to Bible college. You can know the Bible because you can read. And you can learn not just the Bible, but books about the Bible from authors that are educated to the point that they're going to tell you something that you need to know. But not just in education. I mean, if you want to be a plumber, there are books on that you can, how to fix or do certain plumbing techniques, or education, or whatever it might be. So I think reading is really important. Second thing is find maybe a mentor that is in the field that you want to go to. And life experience from that person can be really, really helpful, enormously helpful. I had a young pastor call me literally yesterday. We talked for an hour and a half, almost an hour and a half. And he's a fine guy, very sharp, starting a church, doing a great job, but he's having some family issues and just, asked for my help, helping him think through those things. So find somebody that, has walked down that road that you want to walk down and, ask questions of them. Important. And by the way, you can ask questions of people that you don't even know, but you know about them. And I wouldn't give them a 10-page, questionnaire, but maybe 2 or 3 important questions that are puzzling you. And if you can just ask them, email them or something, they'll respond to that. I get a lot of that.
Never hurts just to shoot an email. Yeah. At the very least.
Yeah,
or at the very
if they
worst,
don't answer, they don't answer.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I think they would. It may take them a while. They're busy.
Yeah. All right. So last question. Well, actually, last 2 questions. Apologize. What are some things that we should be trying to learn about? Like beyond our education, or formal education, beyond our preparation for a career, beyond what you learn in a classroom, what are some things that we as Christian young men should be striving to learn about? Like maybe finances or, I don't know, leadership, things like that.
Well, leadership's wide open today. I mean, there's just different levels of leadership, and there's some really good books on leadership. Again, if you want the name of a few, if you just email me, cts@churchplanningamerica.org. I can be happy to say I'd like a list of some leadership books. I'd be happy to provide that. Again, that's cts@churchplanningamerica.org. So leadership's a big thing. I'll tell you, relationships are key. Almost every job that you encounter, you have to have relational ability. You just be able to communicate well, be able to understand where that person is coming from, what their situation is in life. If they're, ahead of you, as a boss, or you're trying to maybe sell something to that person. I mean, just relationships. And marriage is a big one. Most young guys want to get married, and understanding how marriage works. I often say, you marry someone, most people marry people unlike themselves. And at first it's intriguing, and after marriage, it's irritating. Because why in the world doesn't this person think like I think? Well, they're not you. And that's the balance that comes into a marriage. You're this, and she's this. And so for young guys, you got to really think that through. We get just really overwhelmed by this person. But you better think through, is this person going to be a good wife? Is he going to be a good mother? Does she have the same value system that I have? I mean, those are questions that you would want to ask on marriage, before you jump into that with somebody, for sure. So I think, marriage is a big thing. Just interpersonal relationships a big thing. How to communicate is a big thing. Leadership's a big thing. Almost anything you do, you may not be a leader at work, but you can be a leader at your church. You can be a leader in your community. Most communities have some kind of a little, group of people that kind of speak for the community. So you might be a leader in that group as well. So there's a lot of advantages there just to grow in these areas that may have nothing to do with your occupation that you can see, but really have to do with life.
Gotcha.
Yeah, life success.
All right, then last question, just for a little bit of anecdotal evidence. How has your education helped you in your life?
Well, had I not advanced in my education, I wouldn't have ended up as a college president.
That's fair.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Or, I've spoken in probably a dozen or more colleges in the country. They're not going to invite someone in that they don't have confidence in. And so those credentials do help in that sense of the word. Then again, if you're an electrician and you were certified by this electrical group, whatever that might be, that's gonna open some doors for you in life. So I do think education is important. I think, truthfully, if you've been in whatever you're doing long enough, maybe 5-10 years, then I think experience may trump education, unless it's an actual educational institution that you're applying to. To be a teacher or an experimenter, then they're going to want your credentials, obviously. But I think generally in life, education is at least as important as experience, and sometimes experience will trump education.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So your education has been helpful, but your experience has been even more helpful.
Yeah, I mean, for example, just take ministry. If a guy's a pastor, and let's say he went a couple years of Bible college or Christian college, but didn't finish, but he's pastor, he's got good personal skills, he's a good leader. It's just innate. He's got all this stuff, and the church is growing and done really well. People, trusted Christ. I mean, things just really have worked well. The congregation has grown. So he takes a church at 50, and all of a sudden, 3 or 4 or 5 years later, it's 300 or 400. That guy's going to be wanted by other churches. And the fact that he only went 2 years isn't going to matter to them. They see the product, what he's able to produce. So I think that's really important. Again, educated. There's a lot of people that are educated that, quite frankly, with all honesty, couldn't build a birdhouse. They just couldn't. But I mean, I think figure out what God wants you to do with your life, and then funnel your education and your experience that way.
Have you ever built a birdhouse?
I have not built a birdhouse. I don't know that I'm capable of building a birdhouse.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking through that with us. We appreciate you and your wisdom, your insight. You guys prioritize your education, get into it, learn stuff, because the more you learn, the more you know.
Doors open.
Yes. But keep in mind that the most important thing that you can be learning about is God and the Bible and learning how to follow him with your life. The other things will get filtered through all of that.
When you have core values in your life, which are so important, that are based on biblical truth, that's going to help you in life no matter what you do. Marriage, job, parenting, that's key.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening today. Remember, act like men, be strong.